Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti, today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show.
Yes, it is. Welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and today we got a different kind of treat for you during the second half of the show. Ruben Villa IV won 10 national championships as an amateur and was runner-up at the 2016 U.S. Olympic trials, and he's right now one of America's very hottest prospects in the featherweight division. This coming Saturday, he'll try to improve his record to 11-0 when he fights a Colombian, Marlon Olea, who is 13-2 with 12 knockouts. That'll be the 8-round main event of a show at the Storm House in Salinas, California on Saturday night. And that also happens to be Ruben's hometown. It's the first time Ruben Villa has fought in his hometown as a pro, and the show's been sold out for several weeks. So that atmosphere there is going to be very, very electric for Thompson Boxing and for the fans of Salinas. So today we're going to talk to Ruben's head trainer, Max Garcia, and also his ring strategist, Dean Familton. They're going to give us an inside peek at training camp, front to back, and exactly what it took physically, mentally, and strategically to get Ruben ready for this very big fight in his career. That's going to be enlightening and interesting, so stay tuned with us for that segment today. Paul McLaughlin, our British correspondent, is on holiday, as they say in England, so he did not get us a weekly update this week. He'll be back next week with something from the United Kingdom boxing scene. But we'll kick it off, as always, with a look at what has happened in the past few days in our worldwide boxing scene with our expert analyst. Travis Hartman is a professional boxer and boxing trainer from Osborne, Missouri. He's now living and training in Orlando, Florida. Rizwaan Zahid is a boxing journalist from Toronto. John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer for MaxBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com, and John and I are co-authors of Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy, which you can find right now on Amazon. Hey, guys, before we get to the weekend fights, the story of the week, obviously, is that the Canelo Golovkin fight is off. Canelo chose to withdraw from that fight rather than defend himself against 2 dirty drug tests. So let's talk about that first. Travis, why do you think he did that? If he got clenbuterol in his system from tainted Mexican meat, as he claims, why didn't Canelo stick to his guns and present whatever evidence he had of that and let the chips fall where they may? The Nevada State Athletic Commission make a ruling.
I can tell you that definitively, me as a professional fighter myself, if this would have happened to me, I would have fought this all the way to the very end. I would have fought for my innocence, and innocent people do. Generally, guys, innocent people fight for their innocence. They don't just roll over and throw the towel in. And as we all know, Canelo's never threw the towel in a boxing match. He's never threw the towel in anything. So that just goes to show you that I think all signs are pointing that he was 100% guilty. Those 2 failed tests, I don't think were by accident. It's just things are adding up, guys. Where there's smoke, there's always fire. And I think right now it's proving that with Canelo. And it sucks because Canelo has had a phenomenal track record all the way up to this point, almost 50 pro fights, and never, ever tested dirty. And he's even in the voluntary anti-doping program as well. So I don't get it. Personally, he has been clean his whole entire career, but maybe, just maybe, this rematch with Triple G was so big and it was weighing on him so much that, you know, the whole entire camp, maybe it was his handlers, maybe it was his trainers, that were just seeing something in him they didn't like, so they put him on the computer. Whatever it is they're doing, it just doesn't look like it's on the up and up, and it definitely makes him look guilty. The more time that passes by, and the fact that he pulled out of this before they're supposed to have another hearing April 18th in Nevada, and that was canceled now because Canelo pulled out. So I don't get it. If you're innocent, you fight for your innocence, and right now he's not fighting, so that just shows me that he's guilty.
Okay, so essentially what this comes down to, what we say in American courts, it's a no contest plea by Canelo, and I don't think, I don't know if that's what you call it up there in Canada, but he didn't defend himself against the charges or try to support his own case. He basically throws himself at the mercy of the court. So, Riz, it sounds to me like he's facing a suspension of 6 months, maybe a year. If it's 6 months, that's not really a suspension at all in this sport, is it?
No, if anything, it actually helps him because Triple G will have another fight probably under his belt and 6 months older. So how is that a suspension, or how is that a deterrent for the guy who's still going to make 20-something million or whatever it is for the rematch? It's not much of a punishment at all. Guys go a lot of time 1 year between fights. So I think they needed a harsher penalty here. I really do, because I think the tainted meat argument was valid 5 years ago. I don't think it's valid anymore. Not when you are the most popular, richest fighter in Mexico. Why are you having meat that's not, knowing you have a fight coming up, knowing you're being tested? Why would you have meat coming from the country that you say it's an ongoing problem? You know that, and so do your trainers, obviously, who are former butchers. So the way I look at it, regardless of whether you think he's guilty or not guilty, it's a very convenient excuse. And when it's an excuse that's already built and convenient and just waiting to happen, there has to be a harsh punishment for that, because I think the Nevada State Athletic Commission is looking at it and saying you can't be this ignorant about it. So I don't think a 1 year suspension is enough, but sadly I think that's what's probably going to happen, and it will be reduced to 6 months, which means we're looking at September.
Wow. Riz, if he gets suspended in Nevada, do you think other states would follow suit?
No, sadly, no. Yeah, I mean, sadly they wouldn't. Money trumps everything. I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas comes knocking and wants him to fight at Cowboy Stadium. I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if he fights in Mexico. So, no, sadly, the athletic commissions don't really work well. They don't work well on their own, but let alone together.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to have that ripple effect that we should see. I think for any other fighter it would. I think if it's, for a B-plus kind of fighter, it might. Not someone's Canelo's level, because people are always trying to fight to have him fight there. I'm sure if they say, we want to fight in New York, I'm pretty sure the New York Athletic Commission will be all over it. Yes, they'll say, I'm sure the PR spin would be, we'll test him rigorously and all those kind of things. But the reality is he's still the biggest cash cow, and a lot of athletic commissions are willing to look past this to get him back in the ring in their state.
That's what I think too. Go ahead, Travis.
The thing about it is too, guys, that he tested dirty February 17th. So even if he does get suspended, they're saying that the athletic commission will start that suspension from February 17th, because since he hasn't technically fought, they're going to backdate it all the way there. So he would be ready to fight by August. So that's kind of the messed up thing too, and that's what everybody thinks Golden Boy's trying to do with this, him pulling out now, is that, like you said, plead no contest, put the mercy on the court system, and hopefully instead of giving him a year suspension, which is mandatory if you fail a test in Nevada, they're thinking that they might reduce it to 6 months and then backdate it all the way to February. So you're so right. It's all turning out to be very, very dirty all around, and even though Nevada is or even though he has pulled out of this fight, it's still looking soft to me. It's going to look soft until Nevada comes down and says, hey, 1 year. And then the crappy thing about boxing, and the thing that's different about boxing as a professional organization, is just because Nevada suspends him, it does not mean that any other state has to honor it. Most commissions will honor that suspension, but they do not have to honor that. That's the thing that professional boxing needs to get with the program and other professional sports. In the NBA, if you test positive, you're done. You can't play in the NBA anymore. When you test positive in the NFL, you can't play in any NFL-sanctioned games. Same thing with anything, tennis, ATP, WTA. You test positive for steroids, you can no longer participate in any of those events during your suspension. In professional boxing, he can go to a freaking Indian reservation in the United States and fight tomorrow if he wanted to. That's just how our organization needs to get together a lot better with sanctions and just working together in general. I don't know how we don't have that yet, but we do need it.
And that's how we know it's only going to be a 6 month suspension max, because if Nevada suspends him for a year, it's not going to hurt anybody except Nevada. They just kick him out of Nevada for a year. He'll fight someplace else. So, John, the thing about life, and we probably both learned this from our fathers, is that you only get one reputation, and if you tarnish it, you're you might just carry that bad smell with you, that tainted meat smell, shall we say, for the rest of your life. My gut feeling, I'm like Travis, was always that Canelo was a clean fighter. But now I have to consider the strong possibility that I was naive about that. Paulie Malignaggi thinks he's been dirty for a long time. Some other people have weighed in with that same opinion. And now I'm probably going to wonder about him until the end of time. I think boxing fans, if they're realistic, really have no choice from this point forward to be a little bit suspicious, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And the pulling out thing to me was very calculated, Dennis, because you notice they pull out of the fight, but they keep saying that he's innocent. So they're talking out of both sides of their mouths, which is infuriating. I mean, if you're gonna throw yourself at the mercy of the court, what you do is say you're guilty both ways, publicly and privately. You say, look, I mean, I was thinking that it wouldn't have been refreshing if he just made it, if he came before the microphones, I know this is ridiculous, but I'm going to say it anyway, and just said, look, I made a mistake. I don't know what I was doing. He could have blamed someone. He couldn't blame anyone. He blamed himself. Look, I made a mistake. I was trying for an edge. It's the first time in my life I've ever done anything like that. I'm glad I got caught. I'm going to be a clean proponent for the sport from now on. I think personally that because, people in the United States, we tend to forgive, especially if people are relatively honest about what they've done, even sometimes if they're not. But I think if he had thrown himself at the mercy of the public court, which he's not doing, as I said, he's saying he's innocent still, I think that might have helped his reputation in the long run a little bit. But no, you're absolutely right, Dennis. What has happened here has tarnished him forever. There's always going to be questions about before this, even saying I never tested dirty before. Well, maybe you never got caught before. That's why you didn't, and you knew you cycled down the right time. This one time you blew it. You messed up. So I don't really have any sympathy for Canelo. I think the best thing that would have happened, the best way to harm him would be suspend him for a year, and then he doesn't get the Golovkin fight. Golovkin says no. He says, F you, buddy. We're not fighting. And he loses all that money. I mean, that's about the only way that he would be penalized the way that he should be for this. Now, that might sound a little harsh. I mean, I'm not 100% sure he's guilty. But as Travis said so well, it certainly looks more and more like it because, as I was saying, when we were talking about this on Facebook, they got the whole PR machine going. But again, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. And when they're doing that, that's political. And that's shady, and that's lying to me. So I'm afraid I want a 1-year suspension, but I certainly see what you guys are saying, that it'll probably be 6. If it goes 6 and Golden Boy goes bonkers and they schedule the rematch like a month after he's on, I mean, all it'll look like is a big joke. And that's the last thing I want, because this is already, to me, hurt boxing enough, even though people are so cynical about it. To me, it's hurt it. If you do that, hurts it worse. So I hope the Nevada Commission does the right thing and suspends him for at least a year. He'd probably still get Golovkin, but, if Triple G was to tell him, no, I got all kinds of guys to fight. I'm 36 years old now. I'm not waiting for you. That could be something else. But will it happen? Probably not.
Well, and here's the other thing, guys. If he fights and beats Golovkin later this year or sometime next year, it's going to be a win with an asterisk. If he loses, we're going to wonder if he was Popeye without his spinach.
Absolutely.
And when the time comes for Canelo to be considered for the Hall of Fame, I think voters are going to have no choice, if they're realistic, to consider whether they're willing to enshrine a synthetic man. How damaging do you think this is going to be in the long run, Travis?
I mean, I think Golden Boy is very powerful, and like we've already said, the PR machine is already rolling out. And as we all know, when we get into politics can be very convincing. And I mean, when there's so much money on the line right now, they're going to convince the entire world, and they're probably going to convince the experts even that Canelo's clean, Canelo's okay. And after 2, 3, 4 years go by, we'll probably forget this. As long as there's no more failed tests or any controversy, I think most of us will probably just slide it under the rug, which if he doesn't have anything going forward for 4 or 5 more years, maybe this was an accident. Who knows? I mean, this is just. I just hate this. It just sucks that we're even talking about this. I mean, God forbid, what if this was an accident? I'm not saying it was. Like I said, it's too fishy, but if it was an accident and he never, ever tested dirty again for the next 10 years, who knows if it was true or not then? I don't even know. I just know that this sucks. And honestly, the only thing that I think that we could punish Canelo with would be his ego, because money doesn't matter. The guy's got a ton of money. I think if Golovkin did say, no, I don't think I want to rematch you. I think I beat you the first time. I think now you tested dirty. I'm not going to fight you because I pretty much beat you already. I think that would get to Canelo more than anything. His ego would be damaged big time. So it just is a crummy situation, which it never happened. And I want to see Golovkin fight now. Screw Canelo right now. Let's see Golovkin.
Yeah, okay. Meanwhile, there's a mating game in full swing going on, because Golovkin's going to fight May 5th anyway, and he needs an opponent, and these guys are lining up like fat kids in an ice cream truck on a 90-degree day. I find it interesting, first of all, that Golovkin's team made a deal with a completely unknown guy, this Jaime Munguia, a Mexican fighter who's 28-0, 24 knockouts, but the guy's only 20 years old, and he has no real brand name fighters on his resume. To their credit, the Nevada State Athletic Commission said no friggin' way, and rejected Munguia as an opponent. Spike O'Sullivan claims he's been offered a fight in writing, and he seems to be the new front runner, I guess. But he's no superstar. I feel like this is a big hint that Team Golovkin wants to keep the payday, but also is just trying to get past this date without a loss or any damage. What do you think about that, Riz?
I think you're totally right. I think they're just trying to get a fight in, and against just a fight for Golovkin, and obviously not someone who can play spoiler. I mean, that's what doesn't make sense. I mean, you're not going to put him in what's a slick boxer at this point. Obviously, it's not going to, especially on 1 month notice. So, I think I don't think they're looking at Canelo necessarily for the fall. I think they're going to reevaluate once this fight is done. But I mean, it's hard to find a great opponent on 1 month notice. And to be honest, I don't think anyone wants to see Andre in there. And I think the whole point of Munguia was because May 5th maybe made more sense to get a Mexican fighter in there. Spike O'Sullivan's a fun fighter, and he's rough, he's tough, but he'll be right in front of Golovkin. The other option is the middleweight Sergey Derevchenko, I believe his name is, and he said apparently he's willing to throw his hat in there too. But it's a lot has to be done to make a fight like that in a month. And I think at this point, Golovkin just wants a opponent, and then they'll reevaluate for the fall. And you can't blame him, because he didn't want the 8 months in between fights. It's ironic when I see Canelo, the younger guy, who's like, oh, I need a break. But Golovkin is the guy who wants to fight 3-4 times a year, and Canelo fights twice a year, and that's pretty much it. So I think it's funny and a little telling the different mentality kind of two guys have. Canelo likes being the celebrity. I don't think Golovkin cares about that. I think Golovkin just likes fighting, and I think he's aggravated that he's kind of pulled his career almost on hold the last few years just to get to be to try to prove himself to be the lineal guy, and I think he did it. A lot of people thought he won the first fight, and then they make the rematch and he's forced to wait, and then this happens. So I think at this point I wouldn't want to be his opponent on short notice, put it that way, because he's going to take his frustrations out on someone.
John, two other names have been thrown into the sweepstakes too. Gilberto Ramirez and Jermall Charlo have offered to fight on May 5th, along with Andre. I could understand if they don't want to fight Andre because he's left-handed. Do you think there's any chance that he's going to fight anybody of any note, like Ramirez or Charlo or Andrade, on May 5th?
I'd be surprised. I mean, you got to think about the effect this has had on Golovkin too. I mean, mentally.
Sure.
As anybody who boxes, and as Travis has explained, and anybody who's ever talked to a fighter, a lot of it is between the ears, and this has been more than a distraction for Golovkin. This has been a major annoyance. This has been. I wouldn't be surprised if he's muttering to himself all the time about this. And how hard has he really even been training? I mean, the fight is on, the fight is off, the fight, there's all this stuff going on. So he trained hard for a while, but then he probably started slowing down because I'm sure he got advance word what was going on. So he took some time off. So No, I think if I'm the team, people wouldn't like this, but I'm thinking that on May 5th, this is a showcase fight for Golovkin. I'm going to get him an opponent that I think we're going to beat pretty easily. We're going to knock him out inside of 5, and we're going to scream about Canelo, and we're going to say we'll take on one of those 3 guys that you mentioned in the fall. Or I think they're talking about
Billy Joe also.
Billy Joe, Billy Joe Saunders. And that, I don't think that's a good fight for Golovkin, but, to his credit, he will fight anybody. So, no, I think they want him to look good on May 5th, not break too much of a sweat, and I'm okay with that, to be honest, because I think he has been screwed every which way, but any way you can in this whole Canelo thing, and I don't blame him for being frustrated. I didn't even blame him for saying some of the things he said. I think he's a pretty decent person, and I think he's upset, and so. Get a showcase, get a big win on May 5, then we'll reevaluate. We'll look to the future and see what we're doing. But I got to say it one more time, like I said, and Travis, man, it would be wonderful if Canelo says, okay, well, I'm ready to fight you now, and he says, forget it, I'm fighting you. That would be the coolest thing in the world. Even though I know some people would scream, but I certainly wouldn't. I would tell Golovkin, way to go, buddy. That's the way to do it.
What complicates it all even more is that he can't just pick any opponent because this is a pay-per-view card as well. That's why it's going to be very difficult to get an opponent, because they're going to want somebody that's pay-per-view worthy, and I think that's going to be difficult. Honestly, what I see happening, if Golovkin doesn't fight another even champion or superstar, which there isn't that many right there, unless they're going to be tough fights like a Charlo or one of them, I don't see this fight staying pay-per-view, and they've already sunk enough money into promoting this rematch and all of the commercials and marketing that this could just be a huge bomb for HBO at this point, and that kind of sucks, but we'll see. But it's just going to be complicated. I don't see them going forward with a pay-per-view type of fight unless they get a blockbuster fight. And short notice like this, I mean, I don't see Golovkin fighting a blockbuster type of guy, but we'll see. Golovkin has always fought whoever, whenever, and however he steps in the ring with them. So we'll see. But it's just the waters have definitely been muddied for this, and I'm just ready for May 4th to be over by now.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 fights over the weekend on Showtime. In the co-feature, James DeGale lost a couple of quarts of blood, but won his rematch over Caleb Truex and got his IBF super middleweight title back. 2 of the judges made it a 1-point decision, and the third somehow had it 117-110. And then in the main event, Riz, Jarrett Hurd scored a 12th-round knockdown and narrowly edged Erislandy Lara. Hurd-Lara was a much better fight than the first one. Did the judges get that one right? 114-113 on all 3 cards.
I think they got it right, but it was very close, and the scorecards indicated that. So to be honest, I was happy that the scorecards at least indicated that, because we've seen how many times before where one judge, in the undercard, that one judge had James DeGale winning like 9 rounds to 1. No one else, or 9 rounds to 3 rather. No one else really had that. So in this fight, it's good to see. I mean, you can make an argument both ways. It was a very close fight. It seemed like the last round secured it for Hurd, because Lara had some good rounds down the stretch. But it's funny that the strategy Lara employed, he didn't really have his usual defensive strategy here, and he took a lot of shots. So even though it was a close fight, I mean, he took a pretty big beating in this fight, more than any fight I've seen him in. So I don't think a rematch would do him much better. It was impressive fights from Hurd. I mean, that guy's just massive. I have no idea how he makes 154 pounds. But I think the right guy won, and it was close, and I think you can make the argument the other way, and I don't think anyone would be that disappointed if the scorecards went the other way. So I'm glad the judges saw it. I mean, the judges saw 1 point, all each way, and including one that had got it for Lara. So you can't get any closer than that.
John, the knockdown literally won the fight. Who did you have winning that final round up until the knockdown?
I had Hurd with a little bit of an edge, and then the knockdown secured it, and then Lara, as we were talking about on Facebook, threw some punches at the end that just showed massive moxie to me. But Hurd kind of, me with my movie references, kind of reminds me of a movie called Iron Man that Jeff Chandler made in the 1950s. And if these guys have heard of Jeff Chandler, I'll really be surprised. But the thing about it is
not the boxer, the actor.
Yeah, right. The thing about it is that he just doesn't even appear to have much defense. You know, he's just so strong that he just walks through punches like nothing. And then even after the fight is over, he doesn't even look that beat up. And the worrisome thing about that is that can shorten your career, because I've watched like 4 of his fights now, and the kid is never in an easy one. He takes the Trout fight, he took so many punches. He just wears people out. You know, he's too strong, he's too young, he's hungry, but he taps the tape so much, you know, that eventually it's going to catch up with him. And if he ever fights a Charlo, he's going to be in a heap of trouble, I think, because they're just too fast and they hit so hard, you know, either one.
And he does take shots, yep.
He does take shots, right, and that's going to catch up with him eventually, and I that's the only thing I don't like. Lara, I don't know if he comes back from this with an elite fight. I agree with Riz. I mean, he's going to want the rematch, but he's getting older, and that was a pounding. He got beat up. He was winning that fight, and then Hurd just keeps on coming. And just nothing affects him. Even if he's getting beat up for 5 rounds, he just keeps coming. He's too young. And he did the same thing to Austin Trout, if you guys remember. Austin Trout was having a brilliant fight against him. He was winning. He was hitting him with shots. He was moving around, but he got tired. And he finally got stopped. But Lara did everything he could to win. But, you know, I know he probably end up fighting him again just because that's what fighters do. But I don't know if he can probably get off to a lead like the last. But sticking with this kid for 12 rounds at his age now, that's really going to be hard. But no, I had Hurd winning, and I was fine with the decision. I wasn't. A lot of people picked DeGale to lose to Truex. I didn't. I thought DeGale would win. I still thought he had a little bit left. Kind of a snoozer, but I had him winning that fight too. Not 117 to 110. I had him winning 115 to 113. But the Hurd fight and Lara fight was a great fight, Dennis.
Hurd versus Jermell Charlo, Travis. What do you think's going to happen in that one, if it happens?
I mean, Hurd versus Jermell Charlo is a blockbuster, amazing fight, and both of those guys are massive for their weight class. So, I mean, I don't know. I think that John makes a very good point about Hurd. Hurd is a tough, young, hungry lion that comes forward, but he also takes a lot of shots. He leaves his face open for quite a bit. I mean, that first round against Lara actually caught Hurd a couple good times straight down the pipe with a left hand, I remember once, and caught him like clean in the first round. So if Hurd catches a clean shot from a guy like Charlo, I'm not sure that he could withstand that, because Charlo is also a beast for that weight class. And when I say that, they're just bigger, stronger than everybody. And I was telling Riz about this. I think that we're in the era of all sports that these are super athletes. We really have super athletes now, that they're bigger, taller, stronger, fitter. I mean, look at the heavyweight division. You have guys like Anthony Joshua who are lean, mean heavyweights. They're not out of shape guys. They're not guys like George Foreman anymore. They look the part. And basketball the same way. You have LeBron James, who's 6'10", and he's a point guard, and, you know, he can do everything. And the fights, Jermell Charlo and Jared Hurd, they're bigger, taller, faster, stronger, and it's getting to that point now that you can see differences now in the younger guys compared to the little bit older guys. I mean, Lara's not old, but, you know, he's a different generation a little bit than Hurd is. So I think Jermell Charlo and Jared Hurd would be a great fight, and I would not be surprised at all if that fight ended in a knockout. I would not be surprised if we did not see the 12th round, because those guys, they're just big and strong, and they're fast, and I mean, they could put a hurting on people. And I would see those two guys definitely going to the hospital after their fight. That's for sure.
Wow. Okay, Riz, there's something on the internet today. Gervonta Davis, Mayweather wants him to fight Lomachenko next. You believe that?
You know what? I never would have believed that if Mayweather just would kind of come on and say it by himself. So the fact that he was just so open about it, and he said he's talked to both at Top Rank, so it seems like there is actually some truth to this information. I wouldn't see a reason why Mayweather would say that without a point for it. But it's weird, just because, you know, a year ago Mayweather pretty much said, you know, he doesn't want to rush him into stuff like that. But that being said, a lot has changed. Gervonta Davis has kind of showed some lack of discipline and has gotten in trouble a couple times. So maybe he needs a fight like this to be focused. and maybe that's what Mayweather's thinking. I don't know. It's I'm hoping there's some truth to this because Gervonta Davis is a special talent, but we all know what Lomachenko is, and I think that would be a great fight, and it'd be huge for boxing when two different promoters are coming together.
Okay, last thing for you guys. Showtime did an interview yesterday with Mike Tyson that was really difficult to watch. His speech pattern was very halting. He seemed disoriented to me. My impression when I watched it was that we were seeing pugilistic dementia, head injury in Mike Tyson. And as I pointed out to you guys earlier today when we were chatting online, I'm the blood relative of a person who was pre-med before he became a carpet layer. So it's not like I'm speaking from a position of I'm not speaking from a position of expertise here. So you guys think he might have been either high or drunk or both. Either way, there's something going on with him that's not good, and it's sad to see because he's come a very long way from those huge problems he was having toward the end of his career and in subsequent years. John, what was your impression of what was going on with Tyson? What did you think of that?
Well, unfortunately, Dennis, I didn't get a chance to see it. I only got to read what you guys were saying, but I did see an interview with Tyson a month or two ago, and he seemed okay. So I would be really surprised. I don't think it can just come on like that. Maybe I'm being naive here, but I think the possibility that he was drinking or maybe something like that, which he's not supposed to be doing either, seems more likely to me. But maybe, that's the thing about head trauma. It's, I guess, maybe, who knows? I don't know. And but I'm looking for that interview because I really want to see it. You guys have really got me interested. But again, I would be surprised because 6 months ago or even before that, when I saw him being interviewed, he seemed fine. Seemed like the typical Tyson. So you guys saw it. Maybe you can give more of an opinion on it than me, other than I would be, like I said, for the third time, I'd be very surprised if this just suddenly snuck up on him. Maybe he was having a bad night. I don't know, but I'm sure looking for that interview. I'll tell you that much.
Travis, do you think this was booze or drugs?
I think that it was booze or drugs, yes, just because he's at boxing. I'm curious to know I wonder if this interview was planned or if they just happened to see Tyson in the crowd. They're like, oh, my gosh, bring Tyson up here. Of course we want to talk to Tyson. And I know personally as a professional boxer, when I'm not fighting or involved in a boxing matches, I'm drinking at fights, guys. I'm an old school fan, and I go and I'll have a couple beers while I'm watching fights because that's what I do. I love to do that. So I just wonder if that's what Tyson was doing. And I guess it's sad either way, but I hope that's all it is because I don't want to see a guy with brain damage. As a professional boxer myself, I've had 170 amateur fights and over 40 pro fights. So it definitely worries me when I see fighters of Tyson's age, he's in his mid-40s, already showing signs of dementia. So I hope it's not that. And this is bad, like I said, I hope it's drugs or alcohol at this point because I don't want his brain to be permanently damaged. He can live and get better from drugs and alcohol, but if he's got permanent brain damage or, there's signs of brain damage already, that's irreversible. So it does scare me a little bit, but I want to lean towards the side that I think it was either drugs or alcohol, and personally I hope it was just alcohol if it wasn't drugs because he's battled with cocaine and substance abuse for the most part for most of his life now. So it sucks, but hopefully he just had a couple beers and was a little bit buzzed.
Rizwaan, do you want to offer an expert opinion here?
No, I think that's the line ahead. I hope it's not anything permanent. I hope it's just something temporary, and maybe you're just having a good time, and he didn't know he was going to be interviewed. Let's hope that was the case.
Okay. All right, there you have it from our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti, all three of whom are vastly more popular than President Trump in the latest Quinnipiac University poll. Great job, guys. We will talk to you next week.
Okay, take care, guys.
All right, fellas. And our inimitable Brit, Paul McLaughlin, is on holiday this week, so he didn't file a report. We will have Paul again next week. We're going to take a very quick break and then be back with Max Garcia and Dean Hamilton from Team Garcia. They're going to tell us what it took to get their hot prospect, undefeated Ruben Villa, ready for this huge fight that's coming up. All right, so we're going to be right back from that.
If you like the Ringside Boxing Show, you're going to love the website, RingsideBoxingShow.com.
What are you doing?
Hi, this is Dennis Taylor, host of the Ringside Boxing Show, inviting you to check out a new book I've co-written with John J. Raspanti. Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy, is a behind-the-scenes look at the collision course of two authentic ring warriors of our generation and the greatest three-fight pyrotechnic explosion since Frazier and Ali. Intimate Warfare is currently on the national bestseller list and one of Amazon's hot new releases for 2017. Order it now online at Amazon.com. Hi, I'm Dennis Taylor, host of the Ringside Boxing Show, where since 2008 we have been continuously sponsored by Garcia Boxing, the first family of the sweet science on California's beautiful Central Coast. Trainers Max and Sam Garcia and ring strategist Dean Familton are regarded among the most knowledgeable in the game. And Kathy Garcia, who manages all Garcia boxing fighters, is renowned for her integrity and career guidance, having taken two boxers to #1 world rankings. Together they comprise one of the most respected teams in the sport. Learn more by calling 831-261-3214 or send them an email at garciaboxing25@aol.com.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and I wanted to announce that we learned this week that our podcast is the most listened to show on this network. Out of about 30 shows about football, baseball, basketball, boxing, some other stuff too, the Ringside Boxing Show has the largest audience. So it's a great big thanks to all of you guys out there who are part of our worldwide audience every week. We appreciate that. Today we're going to do something a little bit different on this show, and I don't think you're going to hear anything like this on any other boxing show. Ruben Villa IV is a smoking hot 20-year-old prospect from the Thompson Boxing Stable. He's a 10-time national amateur champion. He was a finalist at the 2016 U.S. Olympic trials, and he's currently 10-0 as a pro in the featherweight division. Ruben has been preparing for the past several weeks for what is probably going to be the best test of his short career. He's going to be fighting a Colombian opponent, Marlon Olea, who's 13-2 with 12 knockouts. It'll be the 8-round main event on October 14th. That's this coming Saturday night at the Storm House in Salinas, California, which also happens to be Ruben Villa's hometown. And it's the first time Ruben has ever fought in Salinas, California, in front of his home crowd as a pro. This fight is going to be for the WBO Youth Featherweight title belt. The show has been sold out for several weeks, from what I'm told. So the atmosphere that night figures to be pretty electric, and that's a whole nother burden on a fighter when all that's going on. So we're going to talk to his trainers today. Max Garcia is his chief trainer. Dean Familton is his chief strategist. And we're hoping to have Ruben on today, too. I don't know whether he's going to make it. Max, you say he gets a little bit cranky after training camp, like a lot of fighters do.
Yes. Yeah, most fighters get that way, and they don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want to listen to anything because, they're frustrated dropping that weight. But Ruben, he's been dropping weight pretty good. But the fact that we haven't made 126 in a while, it probably gets to him for a little bit. But he's disciplined enough to overcome it and still carry on with his task.
Max, you've had fighters in the past who had to be watched between fights, even when they're in training, because they didn't mind straying a bit from the plan, sneaking food, that kind of thing. From what I know, Ruben's not really that way. How much time do you typically give Ruben between fights to rest up?
Well, we've been fighting 6 rounds, and now it's 8 rounds. So after this fight, he'll for the 6 rounds, he would get like a week's rest, 7 days, and he'd come back and not out of shape at all. 7 days rest. He's pretty much in condition, but not so much in boxing condition. But as far as running and calisthenics and so on, he's pretty good. Now after this 8th rounder, we'll be probably taking a little bit more time off, maybe 2 weeks, because we won't fight again until probably August. So he'll get a little bit of rest, and But he's never he calls it rest, but he still gets up and runs, and he does his push-ups and sit-ups. So he's never way out of shape like some of the fighters I had before.
This is a question I really wanted to ask Ruben, but when on first day of training camp, is he looking forward to that hard work, or does his mind have to spend a little time convincing his body that the party's over and it's time to go back to the grind again? Is it tough to come back to work?
No, not for him. Not for him. He is determined to be a world champion, and he does whatever he has to do to accomplish his goal. But he's never really way out of shape. I've never seen him over 36 pounds or 135 pounds. He knows that when he starts getting over, he'll go for a jog, or he'll do exercises. He'll start his diet. So no, he's pretty good about that.
Okay,
yeah, Dennis, I'll interject real quick here.
Dean Hamilton. Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Ruben's one of the first kids we've had that really enjoys being a fighter. I'm not going to say he's in love with the process of cutting weight, but he doesn't hate it, where a lot of fighters, they want to slack off as much as they can, even though they know they're going to have to come back and make weight going into a fight. So even disciplined fighters are going to allow themselves like that buffer zone in between fights of what they think they can get away with and still be in reasonably good shape coming back into a fight. And some of those guys, they don't really relish in the fact that they are a professional fighter. They don't treat it like a job or a profession, 365 a year like a Bernard Hopkins. And Ruben's one of those kids that he's a boxer through and through. He's a fan of the sport. He knows what his potential is. And up this point, he's living it, 365 a year, which is a big, plus for the fighter, and it's a big plus for the camp, especially for Max.
Absolutely.
To not have to grind it out to get him, to stay within that framework of what we're looking for in between fights. So I'll just add that.
Yeah. So guys, how much difference does it make to you for trying to get a fighter ready when a fighter shows up at training camp in the condition that Ruben shows up in, as opposed to some of the other guys when you're dealing with a little bit of, extra weight and a guy who kind of got lazy between the fights? Does that change where you start?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I tell the guys, you come in a certain weight because you want to work out to get strong, not to lose weight. And most fighters, a lot of fighters that I've had come over like 20, 30 pounds over. So now we're working to lose weight. Now we're working to get stronger. And with Ruben, we're working to get stronger every fight. And you'll see this Saturday night. How much stronger and quicker he's going to be, because his experience is a little bit more now, and he's working real smart. And you'll see Saturday night a little bit of different Ruben Villa.
Dean, Max sees him every day, but you come in and see him once in a while. I mean, when he's getting right at the end, when he's getting ready for a fight.
Right.
How much difference do you notice in his body from time to time when you see him? Is he growing a lot into his man body?
Oh yeah. He's growing every fight. He's at that age where he's getting up into that man strength, and it's just perfect because what Max and what the whole team has been teaching him as he gets this strength to be able to execute it even better. It's just all the pieces of the puzzle coming together. And his last fight was a real good fight for us because he was in. We haven't taken a lot of easy opponents, to be honest with you. We've been fighting these guys that have more double the knockouts on their record than we've even had fights, and they've just been up into double, triple, quadruple digits of fights, a lot of them down in Mexico, and then they come over here and they fight really tough guys. And his last fight, we fought a guy who was on paper consistent with some of the tough guys we'd been fighting, but he was a little bit, I don't want to call him a flat-out dirty fighter, but just a little more, a little bit rougher, a little dirtier than maybe we'd expected. And Ruben didn't unravel with that at all. He didn't fall apart. He really composed himself, gathered himself, and came on strong down the stretch. And we run every round coming through the fight anyway with boxing, but a few of those rounds maybe weren't as dominant as I was happy with the performance, but Ruben, I know he felt like maybe he should have done a little better, which is a good thing. He's always striving for perfection. So given the fact that he's been getting stronger every camp and then tossed into the mix, you get a pretty, experienced guy in there to add, to your experience. It's going to just be even better this Saturday night with what he learned from that fight.
People who are on the periphery of boxing might think that as trainers, you'd never want to put your fighter in, especially a young fighter, in with a guy who bends the rules, a guy who's rough and mean and might foul. But that's not true, is it? Because someday down the road, he's going to run into something like that, and you got to prep him for that. Is that right, Max?
Yeah, absolutely. These guys, like Dean was describing, you have to beat these guys in order to learn something and in order to move on in the boxing. If you make that close, well, then you have to come back to training camp, make some major adjustments, or think about your career, because if you don't beat them convincingly, that's what you're going to have to do. And say, wait a minute, let's think about this. Let's change our way of choosing opponents and so on. Softer opponents, well, what are we going to learn? So that's a part of his career, the learning process. You have to meet these kind of guys. Sometimes you could be the heck of a boxer, but if you're in a fight and you have to fight, that's what you have to do. Dolph Lundgren used to say, you got to shuffle the deck, brother.
Yeah, you got to shuffle the deck. So you took Ruben and your other fighter, Joel Diaz Jr., down to Riverside to train in Robert Garcia's camp this time. How come, Max? Why do you do that?
Well, sparring here where we live, or even a little bit north, it's not adequate for us, and it's not. I'm taking a day off today. They don't take it serious. Everybody that goes down south, everybody down south is fighting. That's their profession. That's what they do, is fight. They go to work every day, and the sparring is so much greater, so much competitive, and consistent. And that's why we go to Robert's gym's got about 20 guys out there, in one shift, and a 2-hour shift, just training and can't wait to get in the ring and help somebody out or help themselves out as far as sparring.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor. We're talking to Team Garcia, Max Garcia, who's the head trainer for Team Garcia, and also Dean Familton, who's the strategist. Max, where do you start at a training camp? What do you do on day one with Ruben?
Well, on day one, we just the first couple of weeks we'll do a distance running, and then we'll I look at the body language, and with Ruben, I do like a week and a half of distance running, and then we'll go to the track and do speed work. We do endurance work. We do plyometrics. We push the sled, drag the sled, run the mountains, run the forest, and get all the hard work done here. Some sparring here before we go down south and just concentrate on sparring and running and, of course, doing the technical work.
So at what point do you leave Salinas and go to Riverside?
We'll stay here for about 4 weeks prior to leaving.
Okay, so 4 weeks in, you go down to Riverside and start the sparring process, right?
Yes. Once we get the camp, it's more sparring than anything else.
Okay. Dean, you're the strategist, and you guys, especially at this point in Ruben's career, do not know who he's going to fight until later on. When do you get involved?
I try to stay involved, just consistently from fight to fight, just with Max and Sam and where we're at with sparring, what we're working on, looking at films, and regardless of who the opponent is, the one lucky thing we have is that Max, myself, Sam, we've all had worked with my father for years.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all in tune and on the same page for what we want to do going into fights. So regardless of who the opponent is, we usually don't vary much from how we're going to approach the fight once the fight begins from the opening round. But obviously, depending on who the opponent is, we're gonna make some adjustments. So for a fight like this, we've known for a little while who the opponent is, and I've looked at him as Marlon O'Lia and seen what I could of him. So I already know what he brings to the table. And in some of these fights with some of these, he's not a journeyman with only 13, 14 fights, but I know what he's going to bring to the table, and I've seen what his skill set is. I don't think he's going to vary much from that. I don't think he's going to make a lot of improvements from what I saw, or he's not going to, change his strategy coming into this fight. So I know what to expect, and so I already know in my mind, based on Ruben's thinks, what we need to do to nullify everything this guy's going to do. And he's a rough guy, and he's fought Danny Roman. That was his first loss, who's now become a world champ. And then in his last fight, he fought a big puncher. Those were his only 2 losses against, I think it was Irvin Rodriguez, who was
Gonzalez.
8-0, who was 7-0 with 6 knockouts. Gonzalez was his left hand going into that fight. And so I know what this opponent's going to bring, and I already have in my head, what we need to do to stay ahead of the game. And luckily for us, Ruben's a really has a very high boxing IQ. He listens very well to the plan going in, and so I already know how we're going to play this fight the first few rounds, and then as the rounds go on, we'll see how he reacts to what we're doing. And then we'll make the adjustments to probably put a little more pressure on this kid.
So, Dean, is this guy, would you say he's a boxer puncher, or is he more of a brawler? What can fans expect?
No, he tries to box a little bit when he's at long distance, but he doesn't. He's kind of a low-budget Mayorga, and I wouldn't call him necessarily a counter puncher because he's not waiting for you to punch and then react to your punch. He's kind of like Mayorga, where when you punch, he wants to just trade immediately. So the minute you're in his distance and throwing a shot, he's going to unwind like shots on you, like immediately. So he's a guy who wants to engage. His only shot for victory is if you stand and trade with him. That's what he does. When he's out at long range, he tries to be a little bit cute here and there. He might try to shift southpaw. He might try to shift orthodox or throw a jab here or there, but he's not really effective from outside. His whole game is to catch you in the pocket and trade. That's what he wants to do. And go ahead, Dennis.
No, go ahead. That's all right. I didn't mean.
No, I was just going to say that that is a semi-dangerous type of opponent, but when you know how to box and you're educated on using the jab and creating distance, we should be able to have him play right into the style of boxing we want to fight. We're going to fight our fight. We're not going to fight his fight. And we're going to win with superior boxing. So that's how this fight's going to play out. Guaranteed.
Max, the other member of Team Garcia in your training camp is your son Sam, who's he's a professional poker player, and he's flying back from Vegas right now, so we don't have him on the show. But talk about what his role is in your training camps. What does he do compared to what you do, or you both do pretty much the same stuff?
Well, I tell you, Sam has another set of eyes for me. I see Ruben day in, day out. Sam comes in maybe about 3 times a week. He's a totally different set of eyes, and he's got a knack of creating, talking to Ruben, and Ruben listening as far as setting traps for the opponent, or moving one way or moving the other, or he sees he tells me, hey, try this punch and try that punch, and he's just missed when he's not around, but he's very important in our team, I tell you right now. I miss him when he's not there.
Yeah, Sam's a huge asset, Dennis. Sam is a guy that how should I put it? he's learned an incredible amount of boxing knowledge and has a great knack for the sport and what to do in the ring for a guy that didn't actually fight himself. He's been around the gym, since he was a kid. He'd been around my dad and Max since he was a kid, and he really is to his credit, he's a smart guy. I'm sure Sam's IQ is really, really high. That's probably why he's good at poker.
Yeah.
He's just a smart guy, and he's picked up a lot, and he's picked up a lot of the right things. And it's a benefit to me to have him there as well, because he's in the gym, he's seeing certain nuances that Ruben can do, and he doesn't let Max or myself forget about that. If we're in a fight and I'm sticking to certain boxing fundamentals, he might have seen a little thing that Ruben has done in the gym, and then he's picked up on the opponent, and he'll say, hey, I think we should, slip this and then come out to the right like you did in the gym, and then Ruben will do it. And fundamental wise as well, Sam will just reinforce things during a fight if he sees something. Just having that other set of eyes with somebody that knows what the end result needs to be and how we need to get there is just a huge asset. I really, really appreciate the input that Sam has with the team and the camp and the fight.
Yeah, Sam plays every year in the World Series of Poker, folks. This is how good he is at poker. Poker players, guys, they're very good at reading the people around them, including probably Ruben's opponents. Does Sam have a certain knack for picking up traits in his opponents also?
Absolutely, but he mostly reads me in the corner and keeps me calm and hey, Dad, come on, Dad. Yeah. Well, what are you talking about there? I'm looking at you. But also reading the opponent real good and knowing Ruben's capabilities, so he doesn't go away from what Ruben can do and ask him to do something if he knows he can't do it.
Okay, Dean, let me ask you this, because I can't remember which fighter I was interviewing on the Ringside Boxing Show. It was one of Max's fighters. It might have been Tino Avila, might have been Rudy. I can't remember who. But they were telling me that there's kind of a good cop, bad cop thing that goes on with Max and Sam. And Max is the bad cop, and Sam's kind of the buffer. He's the good cop. He's the boxer whisperer in camp. Have you observed that about these two?
Oh, absolutely. It's a good balance because Max has high expectations and he's vocal about it. And even during fights, Max has high expectations and he's going to be vocal about it. Camp or within the fight. And then, he's, hey, this is a business. Max is kind to everybody. as you well know, because you know him pretty well personally, but it's still a business and everybody's not best friends here. And sometimes things have to be said or have to be done, at the end of the day. And Max understands that and he's not afraid to be vocal about it. And then Sam will be, like you said, the good cop, and he wants it, he wants it to be, at times when things can get rough, a little smoother or a little nicer, let's say. So it's a good balance, and it works. It works, but it's worked great for our team, and during fights, I try to be the buffer as well. When I'm there, I tell our guys, I'll let you know when it's really urgent. If you hear it from me, then This is which has had to happen in some fights as well. Like, you need to dig deep and you need to push right now. This is it. But we haven't really had that with Ruben because he's been really good at sticking to the plan and doing what he needs to do, and he's always prepared. And there hasn't been a lot of urgency yet in his fights. I know when you fight the best of the best at the world-class level, there's more challenges to be had, but right now he's so good and so talented that we've been able to pretty much outclass everybody we've boxed.
When you guys take your fighters into a foreign gym. You know, you've trained at Riverside, you've trained at Freddie Roach's gym down in Hollywood, you've trained at the Summit with Abel Sanchez. When they walk into that gym, what's the atmosphere like? Is it friendly? Is it tense? I mean, you're the interlopers. You're visitors to this place. What happens when you walk in? What's the feeling?
You know, it's different in every gym, but we've been lucky. I mean, Max could elaborate on this more. He and my dad have always had a lot of respect in this sport, that when my dad and Max show up at a gym, whoever they're with is going to know how to box. So it's not going to be just some random guys from some random gym that are coming in and think that they're looking for some work and they're going to get ran out of there. People know when you're with Garcia Boxing that you've got guys that are going to be able to box and hold their own, and in some cases might not have too many people that are eager to spar with you. So it's not a case of intimidation, but Max can elaborate more on it than I can.
Go ahead, Max.
No, Dean's absolutely right. You know, you ask Freddie Roach, you ask Abel Sanchez, Robert Garcia. He says, "Hey, what kind of fighters does Garcia Boxing bring?" I said, "Guys that can fight and can handle themselves." So some of the guys, like Ruben, he's been around in the amateurs, so people know about him because he was on top for a long time. He goes into Robert Garcia's gym. They know that, hey, well, we're going to have to spar this little lefty guy. He's going to give us problems. But for the most part, a lot of guys are eager to get in there and spar with Ruben and whoever else I take, because they know they're going to get good work themselves.
Who do you?
And as far as the trainers that own the gyms, I mean, Freddie goes way back with us, and he's always been a friend. So there's never any ill will or hostility going in, you know, to Freddie's gym. And Robert Garcia has always been real friendly to us. There's not going to be any ill will going in there. So, you know, Abel's a pretty neutral guy, you know, more so than maybe Freddie or Robert, but he's not, you know, going to try to run us out with intimidation either.
But also, when you guys walk in there, you know, when Ruben walks in there, there's obviously this alpha dog thing that's going on with all the fighters. They're all sizing each other up, aren't they? When Ruben walks in, all eyes are on him, and they're looking him over and trying to decide whether they can take him or not. Is that accurate?
No,
yeah,
not really. Because
go ahead, Max. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, when anybody walks into a gym, even if you walk into a gym, people are, you know, well, maybe you weren't a fighter, so you don't know. But if I walk into a gym, I already know somebody's sizing me up, and I'm combing the room, and I'm already sizing everybody up. That's just on like you said, on an alpha dog level. But from a professional standpoint, Max was going to continue on there with how it goes with Ruben.
Yeah, with us, we call in advance. Well, like Robert Garcia, I call him 3 weeks in advance. This is my plans. This is what I plan to do, or you know, and he knows that he'll let everybody know. Hey, so and so is coming over. He's going to be here in a couple of weeks. You know, and yeah, you know, they're world champions themselves, so they welcome us real good, and they're real friendly and willing to help too.
How do you determine, Max, who Ruben's going to spar with?
Whoever needs help and whoever can help us. You know, sometimes we go over there, and Robert Garcia, Abel, and Freddie Rose, all been real accommodating to us as far as, hey, even the Diaz brothers in Indio, that, you know, hey, whatever you need, let us know. How many rounds you need, who you want to throw with, or, you know, and I also ask them whatever you guys need, and whoever's going to fight next, it gets the more rounds and so on. So we work together real well.
Talking to Max Garcia and Dean Familton on the Ringside Boxing Show. Dean's dad, Don Familton, was a great strategist and a great trainer in his own right. Dean was a fighter himself. And Dean, since you were a fighter, let me ask you this question. How close is sparring to an actual fight? Are there unwritten rules of fair play when it comes to sparring?
You know, I mean, when I was a kid in sparring, you know, my dad used to always like to pick the right sparring where there was maybe some, you know, more rules in play, and you could work on things and test new stuff out, and it wasn't just a battle or a war in there every time. And you still have gym wars. They still go on. You know, nobody wants to be, you know, look bad in there. And
right.
But there still is an etiquette, you know, I would like to believe, in sparring. I mean, if you're an accomplished fighter or if you're a skilled fighter, there's going to be an etiquette. I mean, I can recall one day when we were training with Paul Mendez in this Argentinian gym in the Marina, and he'd been sparring with Gilberto Ramirez. Shane Mosley, he just stays in shape 365. He trains all the time. And Shane Mosley Jr. was training there and sparring with Paul, and Shane Mosley Sr. was in there, Big Shane. And Shane was sparring with this kid who had a pretty decent record, who was getting ready for a fight. And Shane was sparring with them. And Shane wasn't necessarily taking it easy, but he was boxing and countering and moving. And this kid came in with like a wild shot. Shane slipped, and fired a counter shot. And boom, he clipped this kid good. And the kid buckled and wobbled and fell into the ropes. And Shane just backed off and just had a big grin on his face. And, you know, he still has it. And was just kind of laughing and smiling about it. But he didn't jump on the kid. You know what I mean? He didn't jump on the kid. And, you know, that's, in some sparring environments, somebody might jump on you. You know what I mean? But I like to still believe amongst professionals and respected guys that there's still, some rules in sparring compared to an actual fight.
What about talking about sparring outside the gym? You know, you hear, Canelo and Golovkin sparred at one time, but you don't really get the story of that. You know, it's hard to get that story out if you're a reporter, and that's because what happens in the gym kind of stays in the gym, doesn't it?
Yeah, because in a situation like that, typically both guys are going to come out. There's a reputation behind both guys. And they're going to come out sparring, and it's going to be civil with some of those rules in place at first. But there was a point, I'm sure, in the Canelo Golovkin sparring session, well, all bets were off for a short period of time where both guys were letting them sail, and somebody got the better end of it. And that's probably, and nobody, and like you said, that's how some of those sessions go when you have respected people. Yeah, I mean, guys who are accomplished people, I should say.
Yeah,
coming in, not necessarily to train together for like a 4-week camp, or they're just gonna spar that one time, and it's gonna escalate at some point.
Is there kind of an understanding when somebody like Joshua gets knocked down in the ring that's kind of a secret?
Yeah. I mean, it's in sparring, like I said, you're in there sometimes to work on things or try something different, and so you might put yourself in a vulnerable position. You're trying to see how something's going to play out for you, and in boxing, there's consequences. I mean, it's not like you're trying to learn a new pitch and work on some corkscrew. I mean, the thing's either hitting the base or you're striking a guy out. But in boxing, if you're working on new stuff and you got a guy who's trying to take your head off in return, there could be different circumstances attached to why you may have got clipped or hurt, like in the Joshua case. And so to go out and brag about it like a couple of these guys have done isn't really considered, the way, it's that's taboo in boxing. You don't go out, bragging about what happened in sparring.
Dean, when you're watching film of an opponent like this guy Marlon Olea, what's your focus? What do you look for?
I'm just gathering him as a whole as an opponent. I'm looking to see what his offense is. I'm looking to see what his defense is, and I'm looking to see how he ramps up or slows down as the fight progresses. Is he a quick starter? Is he a slow starter? What's he trying to do from round to round, and what secrets he might unfold throughout a fight? As far as what he might have up his sleeve, is there something he likes to go to? Is there a go-to punch? Is, what type of repetitions he has? Because in boxing and strategy, if you look at a Floyd Mayweather, he comes out slow in all his fights, and he's looking to see what you're doing repetitious-wise. So the first few rounds against a Floyd Mayweather, you think, he's not dominating this guy. But all he's doing is just getting a sense of your timing, of what you're trying to do over and over, so he can just get control with his jab. And then Well, he wasn't a huge jabber down the stretch, but defensively and distance-wise, he'd get control, and then he would play off of what you're doing over and over again, so he can time you. And it's the same thing. If I look at an opponent, I'm going to see what he's doing from round to round and see how that's going to correlate into somebody like Ruben, who's going to control distance and control the jab, and see what he's going to do so that we can set traps for that type of offense that he's bringing.
How elaborate, Dean, is a fight plan? You obviously want a fighter to feel confident and intelligent that he's got strategies and backup plans, plan B, plan C. But you also, I would think, would want to avoid filling his head with so many instructions that he's mechanical in there. Is that a fine line?
Yeah, I don't want to fill their head with a million plan A, B, and C's going into a fight where we're going to do this, and then if it changes, we're going to do that. I want to approach every fight where we're almost on the same page no matter who the opponent is going in. I mean, I want to know, obviously, if the guy is just a slow starter and a guy who thinks he's a slick boxer, and I know he's going to fight off the back foot running away. So I'll prep my fighter for what to expect, but not necessarily for a million different scenarios to play out. So this guy, like I said, I know what he's going to do going in. So I'll talk to Ruben about how I think it's going to probably go, and it's not going to stray too much from that as far as what this guy's going to do in the first round. And then he knows we'll just go round to round and make the adjustments as we see fit. It's not as though we're going to change Ruben into a brawler from a boxer or start switching southpaw and orthodox in there. He's going to stay within the framework of what he does, but we're just going to tweak it from round to round. But I'm definitely not trying to, give him a million things to think about going in. Hands up, stay on the jab, control distance, and I know what this guy's going to do. He's going to try to trade early, so we're going to be ready for that. But it definitely, like you said, we're not trying to overanalyze it going into the fight.
In your own mind, do you have a plan B and a plan C?
Always. I don't want to discredit a lot of other people out there, but you see a lot of guys going into fights and, against, champions and the opponents, or even the champions will say, I know what he brings to the table. We got plan B and we got plan C. And then you see the fight play out and you see the guy do the same thing round after round after round. And you're just kind of going, what happened to plan B and C? I don't know. A lot of people say they have the plans and that they can shuffle the deck, but they don't. A lot of guys just can do what they do, and that's it. They're just not versatile. And some of that, is what separates champions from opponents, because they just don't have that ability. They can't adapt. But in boxing, to be the best, you got to be able to adapt, because you're going to face a lot of different styles, and, there's some good fighters at the top right now. I mean, look who's running the 126 and 130 pound division right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Max, how do you what does a trainer or a fighter mean when he says he felt like he was overtrained? Is that a mental thing? Is that a physical thing? Can it be both?
It could be both, yeah, but well, what I do, I look at their body language, and I cut the workouts off, even whether I'm right or wrong, but I look at the body language and I cut it off, or I cut it short, or a workout plan is not written in concrete, so I'm able to adjust. So, and they ask me, how do you know when to cut it off? I say, I just look at their body language and say, okay, maybe you're a little bit tired, or you're not doing a certain thing right, maybe you need a little rest. And rest for me is just as important as work.
When you're training away from home in L.A. or Big Bear or wherever, what do you do at night?
Rest. What
Just
do
rest.
I do? Yeah, I rest all the time. No, my fighter, with Ruben, if we're near a theater or something, they'll go, like on a Friday night, they'll go to a show or, walk around the mall or stuff like that, yeah.
By the end of training camp, is everybody pretty stir-crazy and tired of looking at each other?
Everybody can't wait till the last sparring session and the next day to come home and see everybody and get ready for for the big fight.
And talk a little bit about cutting weight too, because that's why Ruben's not with us today. He's probably a little bit grumpy because
he's a lot grumpy. Yeah, well, you know, we for Garcia Boxing, what we do, excuse me, I like to spar my guys losing weight as we're sparring. A lot of guys don't lose weight until they until like a week before the fight. I would like to spar no more than 8 rounds over our fighting weight. And as a matter of fact, this for this training camp, we were like 5 pounds over our fighting weight. So that's what I do. I don't nutrition wise. I give them a lot of protein, no carbohydrates, and just distance running and sparring.
Dean, this is an interesting question, I think, and we've talked to other boxers about this before, but how much of this game is psychological and how much of it is physical? How much of a fight can be won by Ruben Villa the first time he looks into his opponent's eyes, maybe at the weigh-in, first time he lays eyes on him and they look at each other?
I mean, it's hit and miss. I mean, a lot of times psychologically you can get a read from a guy at a weigh-in, at a press conference. But, I don't like to rely on that. I mean, mentally, there's gamesmanship. I mean, a lot of people felt Ward, psychologically defeated Kovalev going into that rematch. It's hard to say. I think
Adrian Broner strangled Eloy. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's first stare down.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think leading into a fight, there's some gamesmanship and some head games being played. But, for me, once the bell rings, I don't care what happened leading into a fight personally. Once the bell rings, anything that was done leading in is out the window for me. And I'm just thinking about boxing and executing what I want to do. And that's the way I want my fighters to feel as well. I don't try to have any of our fighters engage in gamesmanship. I mean, we're not trying to be out there and hugging and kissing at press conferences. I mean, this is a fight, and we're going out there to hurt somebody, or win. You know what I mean? It's a hurt business, and we're going out there to execute. So I'm not trying to ham it up before fights. We got our game face on. We're coming to fight, and we're coming to win. So as far as the head games go, we're not going to fall for yours, and we're not really interested in, in being buddies before fights. So that's about as far as most of our guys take it beforehand. We're usually pretty confident. We know we're well prepared. We know that we always have good fighters. My fighters know what their capabilities are. So coming in, we're confident, and once the bell rings, that's when the gamesmanship really starts.
Max, what is the wait like between the weigh-in and the opening bell? Do you think about the fight? Do you try and put it out of your mind? Do you sleep well the night before a fight?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I do, because I know we've done everything, turned every stone. We know we've gone through everything, and we're going in knowing what to do, and we're going in there to win. But I sleep real good.
Do fighters typically sleep well or not?
Well, they don't tell me, so I couldn't tell you, but pretty sure Ruben knows because we talk to each other, and I say, look, we've done everything. If we've gone through everything, all we have to do is go in there and like Don Famous used to say, the lights go on, you better go on. So there's nothing left behind. So they know that they've done everything. They worked hard and smart, and they didn't cheat. They know in their mind that they're going to go in there and be successful.
On the day of a fight, are the nerves building all day? Are they getting bigger as the day goes on?
Oh yeah, the nerves build because it's I guess it's a normal thing. I'm sure Ruben gets a little bit jittery, but he overcomes it. He's been there. He's had a lot of amateur fights and big fights in the amateurs and now in the pros, and now he's fighting in front of his crowd. So it's going to be a little bit different for him, but he'll overcome all that hype.
Yeah, Dean, he's fighting in front of his hometown, and it's going to be a packed house. How different is that for a fighter?
It's different. He knows he knows everybody's going to be there. He wants to look good at home, but Ruben's had a pretty big following. Even follow him on the road. His family, a lot of friends, a lot of people from Salinas have come out. So he knows that there has been people there close to him at these fights in the past. So it's not totally foreign, as though he's been on the road and nobody's been able to see him. He's had a lot of people travel to his fights, but it'll still be different because this will be even more. But I stress to all our fighters beforehand, going into every fight, don't listen to the crowd. The way we like to start our fights out, just being smart and tactical. Sometimes, raucous crowds that want to see knockouts might not appreciate the boxing, the foundation we're laying out in the early rounds. And I tell our guys, don't listen to the crowd. We're here to do our thing. And he's been great about that. He understands. And I don't expect anything different for this fight. He knows what we need to do and what it's going to take to get there. And the fact that he has people from home watching. Ruben's a really, really bright kid, and he's pretty mature beyond his years, in the sport. And he's not going to let it get to him. He's not going to go out there and feel he needs to dazzle right from the opening round and put on some kind of performance for his hometown fans. His performance is going to be good regardless.
And you said a little earlier, Ruben's a good listener, and
yeah.
I assume that applies to between rounds too, when you're trying to give him instructions and during that 1 minute period.
Yep.
And you've worked with other fighters who aren't. How difficult is it for a fighter to, for a strategist to talk to a fighter and the fighter to absorb that in 1 minute and then go out and do exactly what the strategist wants him to do, particularly considering the other fighter has a play in this too?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly gratifying to work with somebody that, has the capability to do what you want them to do and is willing to do it. And yeah, there's another fighter, but that's where I come into play. I know what is gonna work for our fighter against the opponent, and if he does it, it's going to work. I mean, it might not work the first time, it might not work the second time, but I'm not going to put him in harm's way to get it done. But if I tell him to do something, or we're going to cheat this side and we're going to counter with something, and if he tries it a few times, try to set this up, then it's going to play out. And like you said, it's when you have guys that don't listen, that stick to a certain way of fighting in a fight, that's when it can be, frustrating. But with somebody like Ruben, oh no, he wants to win and he trusts what we're doing. He believes in it. That's a big thing with the fighter, is having somebody in your stable that believes in what you're trying to put forth. And Ruben believes in it.
Last one for you guys. Max, at some point before the ring walk, there's going to be a final briefing. When does that come, and kind of what do you do? Do you go over the game plan for the millionth time? Or is it
we'll go over it. Well, we'll go over it while we're warming up, and then after we warmed up, Dean's emphasizing his strategy to Ruben, and I just stay quiet. Sam stay quiet, and I just say, okay, let's go do it. And once we're walking, I just let him think for himself and be himself and focus on walking into the ring.
Wow, fun and enlightening stuff, guys. Ruben Villa of Garcia Boxing fights Marlon Olea on Saturday night at the Storm House in Salina, California. The WBO's Youth Featherweight Championship belt will be the prize. I'm hearing the show's been sold out for quite a while. It's going to be a great night for boxing fans on California's Central Coast. Max Garcia is the trainer. Dean Hamilton's the strategist. Ruben Villa IV is the fighter. And, guys, it's been a pleasure as always. Kick some Colombian ass on Saturday night.
Thank you, Dennis. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Dennis. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you Saturday.
Yeah.
Good luck, Dean. Take
care. Okay. All righty. Okay. See you guys. Hey, do you like this show? Do us a solid and tell your boxing friends about us. Better yet, post the Ringside Boxing Show on your social media sites and help us go viral. Help us grow, guys. Also, if you haven't yet discovered the #1 website in the world for daily boxing news, you got something to add to your bucket list. We update RingsideBoxingShow.com 365 days a year with the biggest headlines and the hottest stories every day. Do yourself a favor and check it out right now, RingsideBoxingShow.com. We want to say thanks, as always, to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti. Our British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin, couldn't be with us this week. He's been on holiday, as they say over there in England. But another huge thanks to today's featured guest, Garcia Boxing, trainer Max Garcia, strategist Dean Hamilton, and best of luck this weekend to Ruben Villa IV, Dracula, who fights Saturday night in his hometown in Salinas, California. Finally, a great big thanks to you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today and for making us the #1 ranked podcast on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Keep your chin tucked, and we will talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back. You might get cold cocked if you cross my path. It's a great day